coming through, guys. Should be a good session. All right. Okay, so without further ado, Ray, I shall pass the session over to you, mate.
Okay, can everyone hear me? That's the first thing. Is my mic working? Oh my God, it's amazing because I cannot hear myself. Okay, brilliant. Let me just see if there's any way I can hear myself. It's very weird having this like boomy sound in my head. It's not coming through my thing. 1 second. Can I do that? Is it going to work? Don't worry about it. As long as you guys can hear me, that's cool, right? Everyone can hear me?
Good, man.
Perfect. All right. So firstly, please forgive me, guys. We have a slight technical difficulty. Antonio and I were trying to get this to work on my main computer. And for some reason, the one day that it didn't seem to work was today. So we're on my laptop and this might be a tiny bit glitchy. So if it is, please bear with me. My name's Ray Foxx. I'm a DJ, producer. Antonio was kindly playing a couple of my tracks as you guys came in. I've had one of them was a big chart success back in 2013, 2014, something like that. I think you couldn't go anywhere without hearing it in the UK. It was on the Radio 1A list. It was all over Ibiza. And the other one he played was a track called The Trumpeter. So that one was Boom Boom. He played a track called The Trumpeter, which was my kind of breakthrough record. And that was in 2011. And it was a huge Ibiza club record, massive in the club scene in the UK, Europe, all over the world. And it was out on Defected Records. And yeah, I went from eating baked beans and struggling as a graphic designer, which I wasn't amazing at, or a web designer, which I wasn't amazing at, to suddenly the next day DJing and touring the world. And it was great fun. I think my third gig I'd ever done in my entire life was in Ushuaia in Ibiza, which was extremely nerve-wracking. So yeah, it's been a right old journey so far. Can I get a hi and a thumbs up? Who's here? Who can I see? How many people have I got here? I've got quite a few of you here. Okay, brilliant. So the track we're going to be looking at today is, I thought it'd be quite nice to go through a remix that I've done. I did it a couple of years ago. I can't remember when this came out. Let me see what YouTube says. When did this come out? Oh, 1 year ago. There you go. Time flies. It's probably the last remix I did before lockdown. And it's for a guy called Low 99. I wanted to play it off Spotify, but for some reason it's logged me out. The figures, these look quite low. The figures on Spotify are much higher. And it was a track by an Australian DJ called Low 99. I'll give you a little piece of it right now. If it's going to run.
Lash glue is a pain. Mascara is messy. Extensions are expensive.
That's not my track.
And Foxy's.
Okay, almost. Here we go. So this is the original version that I was sent. There you go, vibey, summery thing. Great track. It's did very well in Australia. I don't know how well it did else over here, but it was a big Australian track and it was very big for the producer. So the reason I ended up doing this remix, or managed to get the opportunity to remix this track, was Low 99 is actually a friend of mine. I've known him for several years. We've done some tracks together. And it's just one of these things, like often remixes kind of come through those kind of channels. Like it's usually kind of knowing a producer or having some kind of connection to an artist or having some kind of connection to a label. So the kind of whole networking side of it kind of really kind of has helped me with these kind of things. So yeah, I think he may have actually, I think this way this worked is he actually sent me this track and asked me to do a mix down, because I do mix downs of other people's tracks as well. And I think when I heard it, I was like, mate, you have to let me remix this track, because I really like the track. And sometimes that's quite a good motivation for remixing. Let me play you my version so you can hear what I did with it. So he did ask me to do something that he deems to have UK radio appeal, or Kiss, there you go, Kiss FM appeal, Antonio. He wanted me to do something with a piano house thing on it, which I did shudder at first because there's like a billion piano house tunes, but I accepted the challenge. And this is what I did. Let's hope we don't get another makeup advert. Oh, here we go, another advert. I don't understand why I'm being target advertised this. I don't think this is my brand. Okay, here we go. This is my version.
Don't try to fight it, completely decide what you really feel. If you try to hide it, we could lose this fight. What we got is real. But it's gonna be outside, you and me, we can stay high. You won't fall alone, hold on to me, we can stay high.
So you get the idea. Bouncy, summery kind of remix. So yeah, that's my version. So what I first wanted to, I don't know, which round should I do this? Let me go through the remix first for a bit, and then I'll talk to you guys about some more ways of thinking about remixes later on. Let's do it that way around. Okay, so this is not my final Ableton session. Long story short with this one, when I was given the remix, I had like, I think he gave me 10 days to turn it around, which would include all their comments and moans and things they want me to change and things I think are amazing that I can keep and yada yada. So it wasn't a very long turnaround period, and I think that was including getting the mastering done as well. So I kind of started it on one computer, moved it to another computer, and I had to kind of rush through my normal kind of normal writing and mixing process. So this track ended up getting a lot of audio bounced down. So the final version is a bit crisper and has like but it's all just audio stems. It's quite boring to look at. And I just, for many reasons, I couldn't do I basically ended up overloading my computer and had to kind of bounce lots of audio, which I don't normally like to do, but because I had to do it so quickly, that happened. So this is going to sound a little different in the sense of the mix, but it should all be there. So this is the session. Let me make sure you can hear all this. Oh, wow, that's really loud. This is also the club version. I don't think I'd done the radio edit by this point. So the version you heard on YouTube just then was the kind of, we call it the Spotify edit now, but you know, it's back in the day it was called the radio edit. So it was a shortened version. So this is a little longer, it has an intro, outro, a few extra bits in the middle. But normally I'd like to do them concurrently, but again, because this was such a short turnaround, I ended up just cutting it down at the end. Let me just make sure this is not too loud for you guys. So can you guys all hear that? Okay, amazing. So let me skip in a little bit. Where's the vocals? I'm going to quit YouTube as well because it's... Okay, so not a million miles away from where it ended up. First of all, is everyone here, who here is that familiar with Ableton? Does this look like an alien program to a lot of you guys? Are you all Logic users? Can I get is it possible to get like a little thumbs up on the chat to let me know?
Yeah, let us know what levels of Ableton you're at. Maybe just write in the chat real quick if you've...
Yeah, because I can understand that to a lot of people that come from Logic or Cubase or Pro Tools or whatever, like this looks really weird. It looks like a toy, basically, Ableton.
Yeah.
So if you guys could let me know.
FL Studio.
Okay.
Video of Ableton, basic level. Never used Ableton.
Let me see, because if everyone's Logic here, I'm gonna have to go a little bit slower. It's okay. Okay, cool.
Cool. So at least some of you have familiar with Ableton, but it's good to see that a lot of you are familiar with some sort of DAW. That's good. Okay,
so guys, just to orient you with Ableton. Well, we all call it Ableton. It's actually called Live, but for some crazy reason, everyone just calls it by the company name, which is Ableton, because it just, I don't know, it's easy to remember. It's very similar to Logic and Cubase. You've got the same thing. The tracks are all down here, but it's kind of backwards, whereas it's on the other side for Logic and Cubase. And you do have a mixer. It looks scarily basic. This is kind of the mixer. Let me close down some of these windows because it's a little bit confusing looking. Got so many chat windows and stuff open. So you kind of have this mixer window here. And you see all these blocks up here. These are kind of like part of the writing process, essentially. I won't go through that for a second. I'm going to go through the main thing that you're used to, but this is another way that you use Ableton.
That's kind of look like Cubase 1.1 for some reason.
It's horrifically basic. It looks horrible. It literally looks horrible. But you know, we learn to deal with it because we like it. Okay, so let's just go through this a bit. So I tend to like do simple things. Like I always tend to group my drums together. You'll see there's a plug in there that isn't working. That's probably like a drum compressor or something, a bus compressor or something on there. And in normal circumstances, I would have drums. I would have grouped my vocals together. Actually, I've got the vocals grouped here in the Foxx bus here. And I would group all my other instruments together. As you can see, like I said, this was a very quick turnaround, so it's a little more messy. But I like to do it for two reasons. One, I like to apply different processing onto vocals sometimes. Like sometimes, for example, I might want to just filter all the vocals. So let's have a look. Have I done something like that here? I probably have. There you go. So if you look here, this bloody zoom window, I filtered the vocals here. So and you can see I've got lots of, this is the way Ableton's plugins look along here. I know it looks weird, but this is just Ableton. So you can see I've kind of done some quite harsh EQ on the vocals. I've done some compression here. I've done some more EQing, some more filtering, a bit of effects there. And this is the kind of stuff that I will do. And this is the reason why I tend to group things together, because it's just like I get a more glued sound if I tend to run multiple instruments through the same group at the same time. And it'll be the same with loads of other instruments that I use. So, but I thought let's start with something simple. Let's start with the piano, because that was the main thing for me, was to get the piano right. And that was a bit of a struggle for me. I went through about 10 different piano versions. And in fact, it was more about getting the piano and the vocal chops right. Those were the two main things for me, because they were the kind of that was the kind of sound I was going for. I wanted that choppy kind of UK garage influenced vocal chop, and I wanted that kind of piano house sound. So I started with those. I didn't do any drums, didn't do anything. I just started with those two bits. I had like maybe a kick or a few random bits. So I'm going to play you an old, very old version here of the track where you can hear me just messing around with stuff and trying to get ideas together. So I literally, this is what I started with. I got the acapella, chucked the acapella in the document, and I just started chopping up. And I'll show you how I did that in a second. But I just started trying loads and loads of combinations. So I split the acapella onto a keyboard. In fact, I'll show you. I might still have it up here. Here it is. Can you see these MIDI tracks here? So if I solo this one here, Vox Chop B, and play it, you'll hear. So that's basically, hang on, that's basically the vocal kind of chopped up across the, so with this one, how did I do this one? Let me see how I did this. Where is it? Okay, that's not a chop. This one's the chop up here. There we go. This one's the chop. So you see how I've got these? This one's the chop.
Hold on to me. Hold on to me. Hold on to me. We can stay high.
So if you look down here, so this down here is going to keep echoing. Ooh, stop echoing. If you look down here, this is Ableton's kind of main sampler down here. So what I've done, you can see I've chucked the acapella in here, this massive long waveform here is the acapella that I received. And what I've done is I focused on this section here that I liked, and you can see these little blue lines here. I've basically kind of like chopped it into tiny little pieces. So let me just see if I can, once I can play the keyboard here. Is it gonna let me do it? 1 second. Okay, I might have to just do it this way. What it's done is it's chopped it up into little pieces, and I can just play them here on the keyboard. So you can see here. So I've basically chopped it up, and then I can trigger it with just lots of MIDI notes here on the keyboard. And I basically probably spent like a whole day just playing random stuff all over this keyboard here. And then I started trying piano parts with it. So to get something that I liked, I'll show you what I kind of went through to do that. Let me just zoom out a little bit and find the old version, which is down here. So here, you'll be able to hear some of the other rejects that didn't make the cut.
Hold on to me. We can stay high. Hold on to me.
So some of those bits made it in, some of them didn't. And there's probably some other ones in here. I think there's another one I did. So that one there, for example, I was trying to kind of like, that's not actually in the song itself. That's a whole bunch of lines I chopped together to make another sentence. And that's something which I also try and do when I do these kind of vocal chops. Is I don't just think about like what sounds pretty and what sounds nice on the ear. Sometimes it's like, if you've got like an entire track with loads of verses, you have an opportunity to try and focusing on certain words and try and craft a slightly different meaning out of the track. So I tried to do it with that. What else do we have? So for example there, the more that I get close to you, you try to fight it, you try to fight it. That's again, not in the original track. That's just me playing on the keyboard and finding words and sentences that I like. And I was like, more that I get close to you. I was like, okay, close to you, close to you. And I was like, then later on I would have found you try to hide it. And I was like, okay, let's try and put those bits together. So I went through a whole bunch of these different things like that. What else did I have? So for example, there, the more that I get close to you, you try to fight it, you try to fight it. That's again, not in the original track. That's just me playing on the keyboard and finding words and sentences that I like. And I was like, then later on I would have found you try to hide it. And I was like, okay, let's try and put those bits together. So I went through a whole bunch of these different things like that. What else did I have? So again, that close to you thing, you know how it is in dance music and clubs, everyone's drinking. It's all about being close and dancing. So I was like, okay, well, that theme could work as well. So I tried that. That's what that's all of you. I kind of had there. That bit I liked, so I kind of looped up a bit. Okay, and there I tried to use the original chorus thing that I didn't actually make it in the end because I felt it sounded a bit too kind of EDM-y, so I didn't go with that in the end. But you can hear the piano sounds completely different, and there's loads of other little vocal bits in it. And like, I'm quite a big fan of like waiting until I find the right thing, because I think some people, well, I think there are different attitudes towards remixing, and I think some people when they remix, they're just, you know, they're just like, well, it's a remix and it's not one of my tracks, so I shouldn't spend so much time on it, and or I'm getting paid some money for it, so you know, that's worth me spending a few days, but that's it. But my attitude for remixes is remixes should be treated like your own track, basically, because a remix is your track. Essentially, you're just using a few bits that someone else has given you, but you're creating something from scratch. And really, before you even take on a remix, you should be kind of like asking the people who are giving you the remix, unless you're doing it for educational purposes and you want to actually learn and get better, which is another good motivation to do a remix. But for me, the first question I always ask when someone says, can you remix a track? I'm like, okay, who's putting it out? What label's putting it out? What is there a budget behind it? Are you doing a PR spend? Is this actually going to benefit me, or am I just doing you a favor that's going to end up getting 2 streams on Spotify? So in this particular situation, I think the track got something like 300, 500,000 streams or something on Spotify, something, I can't remember what it was, something crazy, combined streams. So it did well for me. And I made sure that it came with a decent label and they put a decent amount of money into it. And then I treated it like one of my own songs. So the reason I'm saying this is you can hear here a very old version of the track. Even though I had limited time, I put a huge amount of effort into really refining and finding the hooky parts that really would work in the song, and making sure that I treated it like I was making my own song from scratch. So I really think it's important, if you guys are going to be getting into remixing and doing that kind of stuff, to bear that in mind. A remix isn't just like a little thing that you do, because at the end of the day, the effort you put in is the effort you're going to get out, basically. So let's have a look at the vocals again quickly. So the other thing I did was here, I think I found like, where is it? This bit here. So if you look here on the sampler down here, I've cut like just the tiniest bit of vocal here, and I think it's just a sustain of one of the notes. I think it's this. It's the same word, but it's the same tiny bit of a word. So I wanted to have like a melodic element in the track, but I didn't want to add anything more. I wanted the focus to be on the piano. I didn't want to add another like bell sound playing or a lead or something like that. I wanted it to be vocals, piano. That's it. So I basically found this sustained bit, and I just literally got out the keyboard and just started playing whatever the hell I started playing. And eventually, after messing around with it for ages, I came out with this cool little riff that kind of had a good emotion for me. And that's all it is. You can see the notes here playing. It's just one sustained vocal. It's probably the end of a word or something. And then because I liked this bit, this hold on to me bit here, and because I liked this, I needed something to go in between. So that's where this came in. I'll go into some of these weird effects that are going on in a little bit. So that was the first thing, and then we go to the piano, and the piano was quite interesting because, like I was saying before, there've been like a million bloody vocal house tracks. So I wanted it to have like a vocal house sound, but I didn't want to use like just a typical vocal house piano. So piano house piano. And there's a particular sound. I don't know how familiar you guys are with synthesizers of the past, but there was a synthesizer or sound module called the Korg M1 from the, I think, the 90s. And I'd say there's a huge percentage of piano house tracks out there and piano sounds that are used in dance music specifically that all use that exact same pattern. It's been kind of regurgitated in very, very many forms. You'll see it written as dance piano down in different places, but that one sound has been used in probably the majority of vocal house tunes. And I really, really, really didn't want to use it. But the problem is that sound has a very, very punchy vibe to it, and it kind of invokes dance. It just invokes it because it's part of people's consciousness. So if you deviate from it too much and just use any other pianos, you find that they don't have the right kind of punch and the right kind of sound to them. So I set myself like a tough task, and I wanted to use a more traditional piano sound but give it that kind of punch, because I wanted it to sound like it had a bit more texture to it and sound a bit more modern. So I'm going to run with you through what I did here. So I ended up using, I think, Contact, a Native Instruments plugin, Contact. And I probably use, what did I use? Let's see what piano I went for. There we go. I went for the Grandeur. That's my piano that I went for. So as far as you can imagine from a dance piano, I picked like a super basic or a super kind of emotive piano. Let me see if I can turn all these piano plugins off so you can hear what it sounds like. So let's solo the piano for a second. So this is what we ended up with here. Let's loop this. Oops. So you can see I've got a huge amount of processing on here. I'm actually going to take it off so you can see what I started with. Let me take all this crap off here. Do you know what? Let me just do a quicker way of doing this. Do this one instead. I'm grouping all these plugins together so I can switch them off in one go. Once it does it, there we go. So this is, I think, what we started with. I've got these compressors on here as well. Let me turn these off as well so you can really hear how this began. So I'm constantly, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm constantly having to move the Zoom chat around. It's very big. There we go. So that's basically the piano sound before. It's not a million miles away, but it's not going to work in a dance context. And also the other thing I wanted to show you is I've actually got something layered with the piano. So what I ended up doing to be able to get a bit of stereo width, because I thought it would sound a bit boring if the piano is just in the middle, I've ended up putting some notes on one side and some notes on another. So if you listen to this one, slightly pan to the left, you've got. And on the right, you've got this. So I did it for two reasons. One, to have a slight bit of stereo width, but also when all these notes, I put these glue compressors on afterwards to kind of give them, to kind of like squash the pianos down and give them a bit of punch. These notes were getting lost in the compressor, so I decided to separate them out so they were on top of the other piano. So something else I want to show you as well. I ended up adding another layer onto these pianos. So if you can see here in Ableton, this means I've got two instruments layered on top of each other. If I turn this one off at the bottom here, and the same here down here, you're going to hear, that's the raw piano. Now I kind of knew I wanted more punch and more snap, because that's what the Korg M1 piano has. It has a lot of snap and punch. It just doesn't sound very live. It just sounds very just bland. But I was like, well, it doesn't matter how much distortion or EQ or whatever I put in, that doesn't have any snappy information. If you listen to the top end of this, at the high end, it just isn't a snappy sound. There's nothing that I'm going to be able to do to that to make it sound snappy. So what I ended up doing was something a bit mental that I don't normally do. I think I might have done this in another tune. I don't know. But I ended up layering this thing on top of it. So this is another piano called the Giant. It's like I don't even know what it is. It's just a crazy piano. But if I solo this bottom sound here, the one that I've turned off, if I turn it on, turn the other one off here, this is what I laid on top of it. Hang on, let me so you can hear one of them. And that's basically called, I think it's called prepared piano. It's basically, it gets used in film quite a lot. And what happens is people will record a piano, build an incredible sample library, and then they'll go in with loads of like weird mallets and stuff and just smash loads of things inside the piano, bang loads of things and record them and make this whole key bed of just random punchy, snappy sounds. So by putting that on top of it, you'll now hear it goes from just sounding like this. So then I'm going to just play just the left one. Now I'll put this on top. There you go. Sounds a lot more exciting. So now, put this one back on here as well. So then I went and just thought, okay, well, I need to basically get that sounding a lot more punchy and dancey. So you can see, again, apologies if you're used to looking at lots of plugins in Logic, but these little things here are Ableton's plugin windows. So I've got here, I'll turn this on. So this is what we ended up with. And you can see here, I've EQ'd the hell out of it. I then added some reverb. This pedal here, this is a distortion. Wow, loads and loads of compression and mad. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't normally go this crazy on a track, on a sound, but I was working fast and I didn't have time to kind of finesse every single one of these plugins. So I chucked them on, made them do a bit of something and then moved on. More distortion. This also pan does like a version of a sidechain, a little bit like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with LFO Tool by X4 Records. They have, you can kind of, has a curve that you can kind of put in here, which sidechains a bit here. It's also pan here. Clean the bottom up here because there's usually a hell of a lot of low end in piano sounds when you play them together. More distortion, some filtering, wow. And then finally a sidechain here to the kick drum. So if I turn this off, it should bounce along to the kick drum. Help if it wasn't the build up. Let me go into the drop. Let's see. There's the drop. Let's say around here is the drop. There you go. And then we've got this side chain going on here just to kind of add some more rhythm to the piano. Because I think on its own, it's just kind of like, if I turn it off, you'll hear that it's just slamming all over the track and you start to lose the drums. It's just a distorted mess, basically. You put this thing on here and it does two jobs. One, it lets the kick and the drums come through, and two, it adds some rhythm and flow. So yeah, so that's kind of the piano, which I thought was quite an interesting sound, because normally, like, I think a lot of time people just pick a piano sound and just roll with it. But for me, with pianos, it has to be interesting and it's got to be something a bit different that I don't hear on every single record. And that's my own personal preference, basically. But I hope that's given you a bit of inspo with pianos. There aren't really any rules. Like, as long as the tone is still there, just try stick a synth on top of it. Try stick any kind of random sounds in there and process them, because for me, it's about creating signature sounds, really. That's kind of my vibe with this. So what can we look at next? Let's have a look at the drums, see what I did with these.
Yeah, if anyone's got any questions, don't be scared to jump in, man.
Oh, that's a good point. Now is actually a good point, a good time. Has anyone got any questions on any of the stuff I've gone through so far?
Yeah, because I know some of you obviously use different DAW. So why Ableton over everything else?
For me?
Yeah, for you.
Why do I put myself through it? basically, I've got repetitive strain injury in my left arm and my left shoulder. So, and I've got it in my right arm as well. I've got it in both basically, and it kind of comes and goes, and it depends on how much I use a mouse. So if I use a mouse too much or a trackpad, this is one of the reasons why I avoid using laptops quite often, is because it was kind of caused by using the trackpad and laptop too much. I can't use a computer for very long. So if I'm sitting here with a mouse clicking and pushing for like an hour or two, that I have to really think about what I'm doing in that time. And using Logic, Cubase, Pro Tools, FL, any of those programs, they're all completely mouse-based programs. There's no way of using the program without using a mouse. Whereas Ableton is the one single program that exists that you can use without a mouse. I've got this thing. I don't know if you guys can see this over here. Can you see this on my screen?
Yeah.
You guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
So that basically is Ableton push controller, and it lets you can basically turn the screen off to your computer and control every single part of Ableton using that device. So I can control all my plugins, I can program my drums, I can program everything on this. So if I'm having a really, really bad day and I can't use the computer for like 3 or 4 days because I've got a flare up in my arm and my shoulder, then I can just use this and it's fine because it's not the same action as a mouse, basically.
Cool.
So also a side effect of that is Ableton has a very unique workflow, which I really do like. And I suppose I've had to like it, haven't I? I've had to grow and like it. So that's the honest reason, is because of this. And over the years, I've become an Ableton artist. So I kind of work with them a bit. So it's kind of worked out well for me. The downside is Ableton, from a CPU perspective, is really bad. The resources that it uses on your computer are quite intense compared to something like Logic. So Logic, you'll get a lot more plugins out of Logic. You'll get a lot more out of your computer. But Ableton does have a whole bunch of very creative workflows that make it very fast. So for example, that vocal chopping thing that I just did, that I showed you there, that would have taken me all of 2 seconds to have got that going. Whereas in Logic, until very recently, they didn't even have a sampler that was capable of slicing vocals like that. It's only been added recently as a response to Ableton having it for 10 years, basically.
Cool.
So I hope that helps.
Yeah.
So
if anyone's got any questions about their own productions or any advice that they want.
Oh yeah, I'd like to think I'm a fountain of knowledge, but it depends if you agree with me or not. I can't. Tony, could you maybe man the chat, because if I can not have it on the screen, it really helps me.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. We haven't had anything just yet, but
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me have a look at the drums here. So, what have I done here? Okay, so the drums are a bit of a hybrid here. So normally, again, like I'm saying, I would normally program the drums entirely in Ableton, but I've done some of them. So here where it says drums, this will be the drums that I did in Ableton. So let's just solo this. Let's solo one of the intense ones over here. Here we go. So this will be all my drums, most of my drums. Okay. Okay, really basic, nothing that's gonna go crazy and inspire you there. But what I've ended up doing, I've got a whole bunch of other drums down here, which I'll play this group here. And these are a bunch of audio loops, and they're not something I've got to splice. Basically, I've got another device called a Native Instruments machine, which is like a kind of like a drum machine that they make. And because what I normally will do when I make drums is I will have a bunch of kind of core sounds that I will use, but then I'll go into something like Splice, or I'll look through my sample libraries and I'll try and match sounds to the song and try and do something a little bit interesting. But again, like I said, because I only had a short period of time to make this track, I had to find a way of getting the grooves working a bit quicker. So this stuff here, so if you have a look down here, this is all these bits here, these audio files. I can't remember, but it looks like I basically cheated. It says bumpy kick pattern 1. So that basically sounds like I loaded up a default pattern from Machine that I liked, that had a bit of a garagey vibe, switched off a bunch of things like the kicks and things like that, and laid it on top of everything. I'm guessing that's what I did, because that's not normal for me to do, because I would normally like to program everything, but it kind of worked. If you listen to it now, as opposed to this, whatever it was beforehand, just whatever house beat. It sounds a lot more interesting, but I didn't have the time to sit there and like fully program it. And that's the thing, it's not a bad thing to like use loops and things in your production. I think some people can get quite snobby about using loops in their music, but it's not a problem at all. Because the thing is, you've got to ask yourself, like back in the day, let's say people, it wasn't usually one person in the studio making all the music. It would have been like someone who specifically does drums, someone who specifically plays keys, someone who programs synths, someone who does the mix down. Nowadays, we have to do everything. So there's only a finite amount of time you can listen to the same thing over and over again and still make good decisions. So sometimes things like loops are good to have in there. Sometimes plugins with good presets that you use every so often are good to have in there, because it just saves you time, and it's more the time of having to listen to the same thing over and over again and not being able to make a good decision on it. So in this situation, I found this garagey thing, I slapped it on there. I mean, yeah, I'm not fully proud of it, but I did it in the end and it sounds good. It works in the track. Okay, let's go down the line here and see what else we've got in here. Bass. Okay, I've got a funny thing. This is going to sound awful. So this sounds like. Well, it's not terrible. Okay, it's not terrible. So I don't know why I ended up putting that erosion thing on it. This basically gives it that kind of like bit crusher effect. That's what it sounds like normally.
Sophia says delegate to loops. That's a good way of looking at it.
It is a good way of looking at it. It's kind of like, because you can always just chop it up a little bit. I mean, if you want anyone else's word other than mine for it, watch a couple of Disclosure's Twitch videos. It's a thing that comes up a couple of times in there. They've got one of their big garage records. Like Howard, not Howard. My God, my brain's gone dead. What's the other one called? Lawrence. No, it's Howard. Yeah, he basically says that he kind of admits that making an old school garage loop, like from back in like the early 2000s, late 90s, is actually a very hard thing to do, because the equipment that was used back then is a little bit different to what we have now, and the restraints they had with the samplers and the mixing desks and things. It was a specific sound. So he was just quite honest about it, and he said, look, I'm not even going to sit here and try spending 8 hours to try and make this really authentic sounding loop. He got one from a very kind of notorious sample pack of a very famous garage producer, and he just chopped it up and used a bunch of parts of it and had it as the main part of the back of the beat. And this is one of their big tunes, has this on. And they are the kind of people who will program and build every single sound from scratch. But he's always says it's good just not to be precious about these things. And it really is. At the end of the day, you're making music, and you're making music for people to, you're making music for the average person to listen to, not for other producers. Do you know what I mean? It's like, other producers are always going to moan about things, are always going to say, oh, why'd you do this? But they're just pulling it apart with the tooth comb, with a fine tooth comb. Do you know what I mean? It's not, you're not making it for them. They're not the ones who are going to stream it. They're not the ones who are going to spend all the money going to your gigs. There's only a handful of them. The people you're making music for, the people at home who listen to it on Spotify, who are going to become your super fan, who are going to go to your gigs. So it doesn't really matter how you do it. It's just how it sounds at the end, really. And that's my kind of vibe.
Mentioning garage quite a lot, because I see there's quite a resurgence at the moment of garage in the charts. There seems to be quite a few garage beats coming out now, which is quite. So is that quite a big? Well, I know it's quite a big influence on you, but yeah, is your background like music wise? You know, where did you kind of get your sound from? Because obviously you have got quite a, you know, your sound is quite unique to you, I'd say, as a producer.
I think when I was like very young, garage, I think I was growing up and on the very, very, very tail end of garage. So I remember like kind of, I'm old enough to have been able to have experienced some of it, if that makes sense, when it was around. And like there were loads of older kids who were like had turntables and all that kind of stuff. And like, you know, you'd kind of like, you know, like you'd have like you find little tapes floating around that people would send to each other or that kind of stuff. So I kind of was into that. And also I got into music production extremely young. like when I was in my, like, I may not even been a teenager when I got into it. Like I was very young, and I was lucky that I just ended up, I was doing a bit of my history. I basically was one of my dad's friends was a graphic designer, and I learned when I was around 12 to like use Photoshop and loads of these Adobe programs and stuff like that. And I ended up doing work for him from a young age. It was like grunt work, but I was doing a lot of that kind of stuff. And we had a Mac at home, so I did that. And then like I ended up just randomly, one of my friends, he's, I don't know how to describe this dude. He's very, very special individual. He ended up blagging his way into doing like a website for like a huge company when he was super young, like kind of practically dropped out of school to do it. And he somehow managed to pay me to do the graphics for it. And I basically didn't go to, I didn't go to college for like, I think 3 weeks or something. And I ended up earning a bunch of money to buy my first equipment. So it kind of like, I've been doing it for a long time. So I've, some of these old techniques, I understand them. I know how to do them. Basically, it's a long story short. But at the same time, however much I do know how to do a lot of things, like I've kind of learned over the years that it's good to know these techniques, but it's like I was saying, you're not trying to impress producers. Do you know what I mean? You're trying to impress just normal human beings. So for me, it's all about, music's all about a conversation with people. It's not about like me trying to make the best bass sound I've ever made in my life. I mean, I do try and do that all the time, don't get me wrong, but I have to remind myself, like, spending an hour on a bass sound is long enough, basically. So this thing, you can see, like, I don't even know what I did here. Let's see, what is this? Okay, I know why I did this. Basically, I had some very, very weird chords going on in the piano. They sound quite normal, but there's quite a lot of notes in the piano that are doing some weird, slight dissonant things in there. And it kind of allowed me to have a certain emotion in the piano. And what happened was, if I had a bass sound that was any more interesting than this, it started clashing with the chords. So this is basically what we ended up with. That note, where is it? This note here. Can you hear that? It sounds like it's not necessarily out of tune, but it's just a very weird choice of a note. Basically, just take it from me, it's not a traditional note that you would use with that chord, but it works in the sense of I wanted to build tension before it hits resolution, where it hits here. The next one sounds very bright and happy. And to me, that sounded a bit too happy, so I needed to create something a bit more dissonant beforehand. Because otherwise, that would have been loads of major chords all in one row. And for me, that was just sounding a bit too bright and happy. So, yeah, look, there are no rules of music, man. It's like there was this guy called Joe Meek from a million years ago who was an equipment designer. And he used to say, if it sounds good, it is good. So I kind of wrestled with myself over this one note for about half a day because it isn't totally right, but it works with the track. What else have we got in here? I've got a million effects. Okay, this is weird for me. So I've put loads of effects in here. It's another weird thing for me to do. Okay, so I've got a bunch of these things going through the song. I really hate using effects. Like my thing is I like to try and just make the instruments kind of rise and do things and do delays and reverbs and things. But again, due to time constraints, I had to put some of this stuff in because I didn't have the time to do it. And normally I will sit here and program these things from scratch, but you can see if you look in this drum rack down here, all these are audio files. These are all just things I got off Splice. Like, but at the end of the day, that's my own kind of thing, is I just like to build my effects, but no one actually really cares. So again, don't be afraid to just chuck these things in. Like, they're just then necessary part of building tension. So let me give an example of why I've done these here, for example. Let's do this. That's coming. I think this builds into the first. Now, if I turn it off, listen to what happens if I turn it off. Like, it doesn't even work. It's kind of like you need to like know. Sometimes you need effects are useful because it's about giving the listener like pre-warning that something's going to happen or leading them into something that's going to happen. So, for example, here the audio just kind of cuts out and then something else happens, and it's just not a very natural thing. And you'd kind of, especially if you're in a club situation, you'd be standing around saying, "Why did the music just cut out?" Whereas you stick one of these in. Gets exciting. Okay, something's about to happen. Okay, what's about to happen? Oh my God, something's about to happen. There you go. So that's literally what? 3 little whooshy sounds from Splice, but they do the damage and they get the job done. And they'll be the same here, I think. Let's have a look at these ones. So again, this one here would have gone in because the vocal comes in later during these bars. If I turn this off here, you'll hear. So this is the first part of the breakdown. And you can see the vocals are here. The effects are gone. It just feels like the piano goes on too long and then suddenly the vocal comes out of nowhere. So it's just another thing to break things up. And also, if you listen to it from the beginning without it, again, you just got a lot of piano here. Listen to when it comes in with the piano, this whole section here. So nothing changes for basically about 15, 16 seconds. Whereas if you come off the back of this effect here, it's constantly changing over this piano section. So the fact that the piano gets clean here without the effects is enough of a change for me to not need to put another sound in. But as soon as it goes past into this next section here, it needs that little crash in to signify the vocals are about to start and something different is about to happen. Another thing that I like to do in kind of conjunction with doing these effects is something which I don't know if you noticed there, but you would have felt it, is I do lots of gentle little filter sweeps. So if you look at the piano here, let's go to the end of the piano here. Again, apologies that Ableton looks so horrible, but here it says, see where it says also filter here? This here is, there's going to be a filter sweep happening. Let me just find the channel. There it is. So look at the piano. So at the moment, it's grey. That means the plugin's not doing anything. So all these parameters are moving around. And you'll see towards the end here, when it builds up, along with all the sweeps and everything, you'll see that a high pass filter will switch on. So I've automated it here to switch on, to switch to a high pass, and it will sweep up. Now watch this. Let's go to here. So watch, you see the high pass is there already. Watch this. It's a small thing. Let me play it in isolation to you so you can hear it. It's a small thing, but if I turn it off, if I get rid of this auto filter effect, it doesn't really have a huge amount of impact when the kick comes in. And it's, for me, one of the things that I learned as I was learning to produce more is sometimes taking away is more effective than adding. And there was no way I could make the drop like heavier than that piano in the breakdown. Like the piano is really heavy, listen to it. It's okay. The kick drum comes in, a bit of bass comes in, but it doesn't really kind of impact and hit you. Now, if you remove the bass from the piano and gently sweep it up, you'll hear that it creates a bit of space and you have a breath for a second. And then when the kick and the bass comes in, it's a lot more impact. But I haven't increased the kick. I haven't increased the bass. I've done nothing to them except take away from the piano. So yeah, apologies for my glitchy computer, but you get the idea. It's like, it's a very much about, especially with breakdowns, it's about taking away, or when certain moments come in, it's about removing things. Other examples of that, you can see in the drums here already. Places are like here, I've kind of taken drums out. And that's just to kind of like give people a refresh and a reset. So you'll see here, I put like a little fill in and I've made a gap here. Tom fill, let's see what this sounds like. Oh, apologies for my glitchiness, but you see what I mean? It's again, it's taking, not adding. So that's another thing that I've kind of over the years got better at, is kind of learning to take things away rather than keep adding them in all the time. Because silence is kind of like quite a good tool in a lot of ways for production. What else did I want to show you? Oh yeah, this is a fun little thing that I do all the time. Where is it? This is, if I do it in here. Is it Vox Fade? It's this thing. This is sick. I love doing these things. So check this out. These are really easy to do. So check this out. Okay, that one's not loud. Let me see if it's this one louder. Here we go. So you hear that reversed thing. So if I turn it off, listen to if I turn it off. So this is like a breakdown section. Let's come into it with the effect off. Where is it? So don't try to fight and complete. That's okay, but it needs a bit of help. So I put this in instead, and I'll show you how I did this. So don't try to fight it. Let me get that delay to stop. So these things, these reverse things, I do in like almost all of my vocal tracks because it's really, really easy to do. And essentially what I end up doing is I take the first word of the next thing. So don't. So I want that don't, because that's kind of that's kind of like the note that I want to use, right? That O. So I'll get that O, and what I do is I just blast that O into a very either a long reverb, or what I use is something called a frozen reverb. So if you go through your reverb plugins, some of them have what's called a freeze button, and if you hit that freeze button, it will basically do reverb forever. So that's essentially what I've done. If I turn off some of these plugins, let's turn off what I've got on here. Let's get rid of this one, and this one, and just solo this part here, right? Listen to this. That's literally it. So what I do is I don't have one of them here, but because the plugin runs on my other computer, it's a DSP plugin that won't run on this laptop. But you can. There's a lot of reverbs that can do it. The Ableton reverb can do it. There's probably Logic ones that can do it. And you just get a tiny snippet of a vocal, and you have to experiment with the length of that bit, and you just basically put that on the track, put a reverb on it, hit freeze, and it will just create this huge long sound. And I just basically just exported this as an audio file, brought it back in, and you can see I've done another one here. What's this one? It's a different sound, and that's just a different word. And then what I tend to do is I just use, let me move you out of the way, Antonio. So you see here, this gain, I'll show you the automation. Where's the automation? Let me find it. Where is it? Here we go. You can see this. This here is my volume automation here. If you see as I run across it with the mouse, you can see this gain knob down here. You'll see that it will just go up. And that's basically just creating that. So I've taken that long and I've just put a gain on it. So watch, if I just put these plugins back on again, is it going to let me reactivate this? It's not going to do it, is it? Can I get it? There we go. Watch this. Now we have, watch this. What's the level here? And you probably could find things in sample packs that sound a bit like this, but it's so much quicker and easier for me. And I like the sound of it when it's part of my own record. It's part of the sound of my vocal that I'm using in the track. And also this allows me to get them absolutely precisely, exactly to land where I want them to go, just by automating them like this. It's a simple little trick. It's really easy. But like I said, frozen reverb, that's all you need. Or if you haven't got a frozen reverb, just crank the reverb time up to like 20, 30, 40 seconds, the longest it will go, and just remove all the filters and whatever. Just make it really simple and basic, the reverb sound, and just literally fire a vocal snippet into it and just bounce it, and you'll get this thing. And then just like I said, get a gain. It's basically the same as the volume control here, turning this up and down. And that's what I'm doing, turning a volume up like this. So that's a good little trick that I do a lot. Let's off. Let's close these down. So talking of automation is something which I use a lot on tracks to kind of mean that I'm putting less parts in, because I don't like putting a huge amount of parts into things. So I tend to automate things. So if you may have heard that whenever it stops, it creates this kind of weird breathing sound. Where is it? Let me find a vocal. Is it that one? I think. Yeah, okay. So if you see here, this is my reverb, sorry, my delay send. So you know how you know how you'll send things to a reverb or a delay. That's what I've done here. I've got one reverb here, which is my convolution reverb, which is doing, like, I don't know, it's from my drums. No, what's this? Oh, this is just some crazy long reverb for the vocals. And I've got another one here, which is the delay. And you can see these little red dots here. This means I'm automating these parameters. And it's basically allowing me to kind of play the same things over and over again, repeat them, but have them sound a bit different every single time. So if we come down here and we have a look, apologies, my laptop screen's quite small. Let me find what I'm sending to here. So B would be the vocals. There we go. So the vocals here, this little thing here, means I'm sending. So when this goes up and down, the volume goes up and down here, it's sending it to this here. It's basically the same as in Logic. You'd have these two at the end. You'd have these aux tracks here. These are basically just aux tracks in Ableton. I know it looks the same. These are normal tracks all here. These are aux tracks. It's the same thing, but sideways. So you can see here, where is it? I've done these things called delay throws. So a lot of this gets done a lot in pop music to kind of fill in gaps. So if you listen to the vocals here, let's play it from, where should we play it from? Let's find, where's the vocals? Here they are. Okay, so it's playing from here.
Hold on to me. Hold on on to me. We can stay.
So you can hear there's a lot going on there, and a lot of those effects are what the reason I've done them is to kind of keep you doing this and keep you bouncing your head. If I turn these effects off, it sounds very stoppy, starty, and doesn't have much of a flow. So I've just turned the two effects channels off. Let's hear it without the effects.
Hold on to me. Hold on to me.
So to me, that's just very stop, start, stop, start. And in the context of a track, even, I don't think it works that well. So let's hear it in the context of a track.
Hold on to me. Hold on to me.
Like there's just not enough going on because the piano is so percussive. There's not enough going on to make it work. And I've essentially done something which maybe I wouldn't necessarily do if I was doing if I'd written this piano part and I'd asked a vocalist to write something over it, or I'd worked with the vocalist to create something, I probably wouldn't go for something really percussive because it's two percussive things. There's a lot of syncopation, and it just would it would make it more difficult to make it flow. But unfortunately, in this situation, I wanted the piano to be like that, and I came up with these kind of bits, and I had to make them work. So my solution was to go quite over the top with the effects and then essentially turn these very stoppy, starty parts into something that sounded more like a flow that had like more, that was more extended over time. So if you listen to it now, it's a lot more rhythmic, and it basically just, it doesn't sound so, the rhythm just makes you nod your head essentially.
Hold on to me. Hold on to me.
I'm basically filling those gaps in between the bits where the vocal isn't doing anything. So listen to it again now.
Hold on to me. Hold on to me.
And you're probably wondering why I just don't stick an effect on the channel, and there's a reason for it. So I'm just gonna mess with this automation here and make the whole vocal get sent to the effects for a second. So I'm just going to turn this send up so it's on maximum, so you can hear the difference between why I've done this. So watch this.
Hold on to me. Hold on to me. Hold on to me.
So essentially, to me, that's a mess. It's got the hold on and the oh, they're in there as well. So the delay is not a clean note. It's loads and loads of words and stuff all jumbled together. So if you listen to the delay again, it's just loads of jumbled words.
Hold on to me. Hold on to me.
It's like, hold on to bottom me, blah, 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 just all over the place. It's just messy and muddy. So let me undo this. So now, if you look at this here, you see these things where I'm pushing up here. This is only sending the effects to the delay. So it's only sending this channel to the delay on specific words. So here, I've got the oh, and I've got, I maybe just might just be the me. So let's listen. What if I sent here?
Hold on to me.
So basically, the last that last one is being sent, but not the oh, that's not being sent. Just the oh and the me. So it sounds like there's a delay over the whole thing, but actually I picked just the tiny bits at the end that I want to be echoed, so it sounds clean. So listen one more time. You're going to hear clean echoes, just the last word being echoed.
Hold on to me.
Watch over here as it goes up.
Hold on to me. Hold on to me.
I listen to the high at the end.
We can stay.
Just the high at the end. That's the only thing that comes through. Now one more time. I'm going to just send the entire thing through so you can hear the difference of how messy it is now.
Hold on to me. Hold on to me. Hold on to me. We can stay.
To me, that sounds horrible. So This is called delay throws, and it's something which you get in pop music a lot. So if you hear like a vocal, let's say, listen to like any Dua Lipa, Ariana Grande, Weeknd, any big, massive money pop person, you'll hear that what the mix engineers have done is, I've done this more for creative effects, and nowadays it's very blurry between mixing and production nowadays. Like a lot of these things get done for creative reasons as well. But if you hear like quite loud delays or a loud bit of reverb in between certain words, it's quite possible that that reverb has just been applied using this technique called delay or reverb throws, where the volume is increased into it just for a split second on that one word, just to fill that gap in, but they want it to be clean and not sound like they're in a cavern, basically. So it's something which it's a bit of a pro technique, but it's something which will make, if you use it on vocals, it'll make your track sound super, super clean and professional, and it allows you to fit in gaps. I do this with things like synths, I do this with drums, I do it with all kinds of things. I automate these tiny throws in, and it might look and seem a bit tedious, but if I weigh this up against trying to balance effects for hours to get them to blend properly and whatever, this is much quicker. You can see I'm a bit of a fan of automation down here. You can, so all this stuff here it looks quite complicated, but it really isn't. It's basically just, if I look here at the macro one, what's this? What have I done here? Yeah, I'm just riding the volumes up and down of these delays because I've put so much delay all over this track. It gets a bit much in places. So this just allows me to kind of control it. So if you look here in the beginning, so let's play, if I isolate the vocals here, you can hear at the beginning of the track. So no, not really much delay. Now, gets louder here. And why am I showing you this? Because this, for me, relying on one single effect or something just to create like a build up or a bit of tension sometimes can sound quite obvious. It sounds like you've just slapped on a white noise or something. Whereas for me, I like it to be a combination of things. So let's see what's going on here in the track. So it's not something that you notice unless it's pointed out, but it's something which you really do feel when the track's playing. And it's like, I've got that white noise in the background going effect. But if I just had that, it would sound a bit cheap. So on top of it, I've got these reverbs, these delay effects building up and up and up and up and up and then echoing across. And it kind of helps sell the kind of the intention that I have here of what I'm trying to achieve. And I also have some other little vocally bits building up here as well in the background. I think I've got like a repeated vocal somewhere. I don't know where it is. Somewhere in here I've got like a repeated vocal building up. It's here, I think. What's this? Foxx fade, is this it? I think this is building up here through the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, that's a horrible sound. But in the track, yeah, it's not a pretty sound, but in context with everything playing at the same time, it works, and it kind of creates this kind of lift from the intro into the first breakdown. I've spoken for quite a lot. Has anyone got any questions? I've probably gone quite through quite a lot.
No, it's been all gold, man. Yeah, if anyone's got any questions, I think so what is it, 2:20? So yeah, if anyone's got any questions, whack some questions in the chat, or you can turn your mic on.
Yeah, ask me stuff.
Yeah, any questions about your own productions or what you've seen today or Ableton or anything like that. Don't be scared, man. We won't bite.
Yeah, I kind of do quite well if you ask me questions. I like talking, so as you can hear so far. So honestly, ask me anything. I like talking about production, and you can ask me something about music business if you want, the industry, anything related. It's not even related to this talk. You can ask me anything you want. I'm good today.
I thought it'd be good to actually show them maybe what you wish you had a question, just like that's all good. I know what it's like sometimes, man. I thought we could show them the one of your PAs or something, just to show what because obviously as a result of your production you started DJing, so maybe we can show them an example and then maybe talk on that a little bit and kind of, you know, because obviously sometimes it happens the other way around, doesn't it? So yeah.
Oh God, yeah. I would say, like, for anybody looking to get into dance music, definitely learn how to DJ at the same time. I didn't learn DJing until I was well close to releasing music. Like I said, my third gig that I ever did was in Ushuaia in Ibiza, literally. Like, it was something stupid like that, and I'd done like one little gig for my publisher or something. And I've maybe done a couple of gigs in Oxford or something like that. Yeah, and I basically absolutely, I can say I shat myself, can't I, on Zoom? I absolutely shat myself for about a year of DJing. And I prayed that every single gig would get cancelled when I was on the way to doing it, because I was thrust into it and no one ever taught me how to do it. I was always at home making music. Now I love DJing. I've had Kiss FM shows. I've had residencies on Radio 1 Extra. I've done loads of stuff, so now I like it. But there was a period of time where my anxiety levels DJing was horrific. So yeah, if you want to, you're more than welcome to. Do you have one of my PAs up there ready to go?
Yeah, I mean, I can share my screen to YouTube. I've got something. Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah, go on. I'm gonna cringe.
Let's see.
Do you need me to stop?
I'm not sure. Can everyone see?
Oh, there you go.
YouTube, yeah.
Oh God.
I mean, to be fair, you wouldn't think
in Ibiza.
To be fair, you wouldn't think. I mean, watching this, that you were nervous, or you know.
Okay, I actually have a story about this day. Actually,
yeah.
If you go back to what I was wearing, can you skip back? I can tell you a little fun story about this. There, you see this, right? Okay. Firstly, these glasses, right? So my logo, like I said, I used to be a graphic designer, so I made my own logo. It's the last thing I did. And for some bizarre reason, my management and label thought it'd be a great idea to make some glasses up. So we went to this like bespoke. It's in Camden Stables. There's this like sunglass designer, right? He's amazing. He does it for like. He also has loads of vintage sunglasses that he like rents out to like massive magazine shoots and videos and all kinds of stuff. And he builds custom sunglasses of people, like super expensive ones. So like, let's go and talk to this guy to make some. And I just didn't ever think they would look like that on my head. That's what I'm going to say, man. And also the other funny thing is, right, for about a year and a half, 2 years, everyone who booked me insisted that I wore the sunglasses. And the problem is, for some reason, because of the color of them, it filtered out all the red light. So if you imagine you're looking down at a pair of CDJs and a Pioneer mixer that has red lights all over it, I couldn't see any red. So I didn't know if certain things are switched on or not. So I was constantly taking off. And also when I'd sweat, which you would do in hot places, they'd fall off my nose. And
let's give it a play, and then we'll because like I said, you wouldn't notice that you, but I don't know, it seems like
Liquor is the drug you're all that I'm thinking of. I'm all that you want tonight. My feet stamping on the floor, your sweat dripping off the wall. We move and our bodies talking night. Right on to your mouth and tongue, come on, open up, come on. We dance in no simple code, the sensory overload, the sweet and the salty. Yes, I feel it within my chest. We fall deep into a trance, forgetting who we were, just dance. Just dance.
This is our first performance of La Musica, and it's amazing. Like, the reception we got was great. Everyone came to the front, everyone was clapping.
Personally, I couldn't have asked for more.
So yeah, it looks vibey, mate. You know what I mean?
It was a lot of fun. I nearly passed out doing that, actually. They thought it'd be a good idea for my look to be kind of like all black. I was wearing an all long black thing. I was wearing jeans, and it was one of the hottest days there they had. And so before I went on and did this, I basically nearly fell over and they had to take me out to, yeah, anyway.
Blimey.
Oh, this video shoot was mental. Oh my God. This is in a club in South London where they have lights all over the dance floor, all up all the walls and the ceiling. And the whole thing is computer controlled. The visuals are amazing you can get in this place. This was mental. It's a really good video shoot.
Well, yeah, I mean, that just obviously shows where you can get to, I guess, in your career.
Yeah. But also shows how much money record companies are willing to spend on videos, which always surprises me. I'm like, yeah. I don't know. They like to spend a lot of money, and I'm always like, you don't need to spend that much money on videos. One of the saddest occasions was with Boo Boom. They filmed the video in Ibiza, and I didn't get to go.
Wow.
My cameo was done in at 6:30 in the morning in a grey South London office they'd managed to get into for an hour, so they could do an office scene.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was pretty grim.
So yeah, most people saying, do you ever use APC 40 or something like that live? Yeah.
So yeah, I did. When I first started playing, I had zero confidence beat mixing, and my main plan was to go from doing just 2 turntables to be able to chop tunes up into little pieces and kind of like construct tunes live. There's a famous DJ, if you want to check out, a guy called Kink, K-I-N-K. He does this exact thing. He's amazing, absolutely amazing at it. So yeah, at the beginning, I didn't use an APC. I used something similar. I think it was like some kind of M audio controller. I think it was because they were really durable and they were cheap, and I went through like 3 of them a year because I used to just destroy them. So I did something like that, but I DJ'd everything from Ableton for about at least the first year and a half or so. Because it was just, I basically was learning how to DJ from my friends. They were teaching me how to do it, because there's one thing kind of DJing at home and like getting the odd little clanger or messing up a little bit at home, but then it's a different situation if you're suddenly put in front of 10,000 people. And that's basically what happened to me. Like, I didn't get to go and play in like 200 capacity clubs and everyone's drunk and I'm drunk and I get to just mess around and just make a couple of mess ups or whatever. It wasn't like that. It was basically straight to doing huge gigs from nothing. So yes, I fully used a controller, but not exactly for the reasons that you guys were thinking. Incidentally, I have a brand new dance project, which I'm doing as a side project, which I am using a bunch of controllers with. So APCs, those kind of things I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using some live synths as well. So, and it's going to be a massive blend between bits of tracks and just full live performance at the same time. So to answer your question, I use something similar in the day, but more so just because I had no confidence beat mixing and I had to use Ableton to keep the tracks in time for me. And now I will 100% be using those things. I've actually got one of my close friends is a musical director for a lot of electronic music artists. He's done like Clean Bandit, Jax Jones, people like that, and he builds their entire live rig. So he's going to be helping me go through and build a live set, including lots of devices like that. That's the plan anyway.
Cool. Clea said, I'm not a DJ, so I'll be using Ableton as a singer and I guess a loop artist. So yeah, as a singer, using Ableton.
Yeah, don't worry about any of that kind of stuff. When I started doing it, people did turn their nose up a little bit. And that when I started DJing as well, there was a bit of a sync battle at that point, because CDJs have got to a point where their live syncing and live looping kind of abilities are amazing. And they all connected to each other. And if you hit play on one, it would perfectly sync with the other ones. And record box had been introduced as well at that point. So there was a lot of it's very polarizing, because you had a lot of young new DJs who were like, yeah, whatever, I'm just going to use sync, who cares? Like, why am I being paid to put things in time? And there were a lot of older DJs who were like, that's part of the art of DJing, is to actually put stuff in time. But at the end of the day, the people in the crowd, if you're that good as a DJ, they're never going to hear you make a mistake. So there is that argument of why does it even matter that you're sitting there in the headphones trying to get stuff in time? You could mix faster as well. And I used to get booked for stupid things, like I was getting booked for 1 hour sets at peak time. That's literally, I would do a 1 hour set, sometimes. And in that situation, if I want to play lots of songs, I have to mix extremely fast, and I would mix really fast. But it was very difficult for me to do it. Once I stopped using Ableton, it was a bit of an adjustment to be able to mix that fast on CDJs, because I just didn't, my hands just, my ears, I couldn't do it. But I can do it now. But well, I say that, I mean, I've been out of practice for the last year, but you know, fingers crossed I'll get back into it. But yeah, the point is, as a singer-songwriter, yes, use Ableton 100%. Use all the tools at your disposal. Don't like let anyone tell you if you're a DJ, oh, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? We're in a different world now. It's all about these combination performances. It's all about using Ableton and using APCs and using all these things and finding creative ways that work for you. If you want to put a loop on and sing on top of it. Do you know what I mean? If you want to try and sing and do all these things at the same time, do it. It's whatever works for you, and as long as it kind of engages your audience, I'm sure you're going to smash it.
Cool. And I guess yeah, I mean, if there's no more questions from the group, then I guess lastly, what kind of, because I know obviously the business side of things is very important now. You know, you almost, as an artist, you have to be a jack of all trades in terms of social media, marketing, business. You know, even labels are looking for people to have the whole package before they even look their way, sort of thing. So what would be kind of, you know, your from your experiences coming up and mistakes and decisions, what would kind of be your kind of advice for people who are just starting out in the production world, whether it be dance music or wherever?
Okay, so I would say I'm seeing two sides of this. So when I first stuff kicks off for me, there was no build. It was just like, bam, there you are. Now your track is huge and people know who you are. I've actually started managing. I've been managing a young artist for the last 2.5 years now, and we're about to start releasing her music. I've started my own label, and I've just got a distribution deal with a big distributor. And we're literally about to kick things into action next week, funnily enough. So with her, it's kind of like a standing start. So I've had to consider a lot of these things, like how do I get people interested in her when there's like a billion other girls like her doing the same thing. So first, let me talk you through how it worked for me with Ray Foxx, and I'll tell you how I'm going to do it this way and what I'm going to keep and what I'm going to change. So with Ray Foxx, what happened was, I've been making music for several years, and I had a few friends around me who one friend in particular who kept bugging me and offering me asking to manage me. And I'm like, but you're nobody. And he's like, but you're nobody as well. I was like, why am I going to give like 20% to someone? And I was like, he's like 20% of nothing. You've got nothing. So I was like, okay, good point. Anyway, he badgered me, and he was like already and managed to get himself a bit into the music industry. He was working as like a as a recording engineer for someone, so he knew a few people, and I was like, okay, I let him do it eventually. And we worked together for a bit, and he really hustled to meet as many people as he could, and just kept going to club nights, going to meet people, constantly putting himself out there, like, and that's kind of one of the things you've got to do. That's a very important part of my original way that my career came up, is through networking and saying yes to things, going out, putting the work in, meeting people. And back in the day, for me, a lot of that was face to face, and a lot of that was going to events and that kind of stuff. Nowadays, I think a proportion of it is online, probably, like with social media and stuff. So you're gonna have to balance it. When we're out of lockdown, there'll be a lot more of it in real life, but you will get a lot of people who don't want to know you, and you're going to get a lot of people who are always trying to meet that other famous person. But the more that you do it, and the less annoyed you get with people, and don't burn any bridges, and don't tell people to just F off if they don't want to speak to you or whatever. You just go, okay, cool, whatever. That is one side of doing this. And I've got some friends who I have now who in the past wouldn't have wanted to know me, and it was actually difficult for me to even get in contact with them originally, because they were quite big names in the music industry. But I understand it now, because I go through it myself. I have a lot of people trying to contact me to do things, and I cannot help everybody. I can't chat to everybody, and sometimes, and I essentially what I did was I kind of like kept badgering them and kept sending them good quality stuff. I wouldn't bombard them with like everything. I'd wait until I've got the perfect thing sent to them, and eventually people notice. There was also a bit of luck. So For me, one of my friends from when I went to school with worked for Radio 1. So I can't lie, that happened. And he was Giles Peterson's producer, and he knew Annie Mac, and he knew Target, and he knew a lot of people. And I basically gave him a bunch of music, and he agreed to give it to all the producers there. And that's how I got my first Radio 1 play. And that's how Annie Mac ended up championing me. I toured with her, how I ended up basically my career blowing up. I also have a friend of the family who used to manage Jamiroquai, and he helped with that link to Defective Records. So there was a bit of luck for me. But now I'm in a situation where I'm launching a new young artist. And I think the best thing to do really is to look at what you have nowadays, because however much like, you probably think, oh, I need to know all these big people. Like the music industry has become democratized. So you can essentially, anybody can really kind of do anything, like from a certain perspective. Like you can all put your music on Spotify, for example. I couldn't do that when I started out. I had to have a record label. Social media was a lot less of a thing when I started out. It was very more Twitter focused, whereas now it's Instagram, TikTok, it's like even like Reddit. It's like it's all different forms of social media and ways of communicating with people. And people, there are ways to kind of like get fans engaged and to get them to really be involved in what you do. And a lot of it's effort, and a lot of it is kind of like free. Like you can do a lot of these things for free nowadays, or for small amounts of money. So I'd say that like your friend in getting your stuff out there is research and work and effort, because you don't have to know people nowadays. You don't have to pay a PR firm to do everything. It helps, and when you get to a certain level, labels will just do that for you anyway, and they'll put that money in. But there are ways of doing it, and one of the main ways nowadays, I hate to say it, especially for people out there who are like social media phobic, like myself, like I hate social media. I hate putting myself on social media. I hate it, but I will do it because I know I have to do it. Finding like your USP or your unique selling point on social media is the main thing. It's the first thing that all big labels look at. It's the first thing that like anyone in the industry looks at, is your social media and your social media presence. And it's not so much about having like 1 billion fans. It's about whether your social media is scalable. So it's all about finding like that engaging thing that you can do. So with this artist that I'm working with at the moment, I'm going to put her name's Maya Ilaria, just a little me pimping out my project right now. With her, I'm still struggling a little bit with it because she's quite young, but the whole thing with her is to find what is a unique thing that not something that I think she should do, but something that she naturally does that people gravitate towards. And that's basically what is starting to work for us. Like, so I was trying to get her to like do loads of live stuff for ages, and she hated it. And then eventually she's found a way that she likes to do it, which is, it's not quite how I wanted her to do it, but it's something which she will do. And it's better for her to do it than not to do it. And people are starting to like what she does. But it's about just finding out that thing. Like someone like Dua Lipa, for example, she was never really somebody who was singing into an Instagram camera. Do you know what I mean? Like her early social media wasn't like that. But there are other artists who do, like a lot of up and coming artists who will do that. Some people have like a unique personality trait, like someone like Lewis Capaldi. I don't know how many people followed Lewis Capaldi when he first started blowing up, but he was a massive Instagram celebrity before he was he'd released a single track, and he used to just do crazy things on social media, and he got a name for himself like that, and then his music came afterwards. So although it's a lot easier nowadays to get your music out there and to kind of like get into people's hands and that kind of stuff, and there's a lot more opportunities, a lot more blogs, a lot more influencers, a lot of more YouTube channels than there ever were when we started out doing it. There's a lot of people fighting for those positions. So it's all about how you stand out from that. And your social media is your platform. It's your platform to make a noise, and it's your way to engage people. And that is your single most powerful weapon that you own. And it will mean the more you do that, the less you spend, basically.
Wicked. Nice. I think that's nice, man. Yeah, I think like well, it comes from experience as well, isn't it? And it's good to to hear the sides of yourself coming up, and now you're kind of helping other artists through and management and all that. And I guess it is a chasing game, right? Because the industry's forever changing.
Yeah,
technology is forever changing, you know. So it's just about doing what's right for you, I guess, and keeping up with the trends, isn't it? And making sure that you're kind of in the thick of it.
Oh, 100%. And like just regarding this new artist we're about to start pushing out there, I've like probably about 10, 20 times sat down with her and her family and just said, look, understand the first few tracks you have are probably going to like do nothing. It's most likely, it's statistics. It's kind of like, it's odds. Like, you never know, the first track might blow up. And I'm sure her entire family are telling her, oh, this track's the best thing ever. It's so much better than so-and-so and so-and-so. But they can't differentiate between loving her and loving her music. Do you know what I'm saying? It's all the same. They love her, so therefore they love her music so much. And that's another thing I would say. Another good thing to kind of do is learn the people around you's musical tastes, your friends and family, because what can happen, I've experienced this a lot when I was younger coming up. I ended up thinking that I made loads of amazing music just because everyone around me said it was amazing. And what I didn't realize was they think I'm amazing, not my music's amazing. And they get it very kind of confused. And it can very much happen with parents and family members as well. They're like, oh my God, this is like the best thing. And they will love something you've done more than like some huge multi-selling track, which they love as well, because you did it. Does that make sense? So it's something which I've done, and it kind of helps me nowadays because I know all my friends' tastes. I know how they react to me. I know what they like, what they don't like. And I sometimes when I'm a bit lost in the woods of a track, I'll send it to all of them. And I most of the time know what they're going to say, but I just need them to say it to me anyway, basically. But you guys are all in a really great position. I didn't have what you guys have now when I started out, and I wish I did, basically. And also you have YouTube, which is like the world's encyclopedia of how to do everything.
Sorry guys, I know we've gone a bit over time, so we'll go with one. So Sophia said, intriguing, what are some examples of something someone might naturally do that others gravitate towards? So yeah, lastly, let's what would you
okay, I can think of two. Let me think of a couple of examples. So okay, you see like Cardi B, for example. Okay, now love or hate Cardi B, she's like, she was and still is like a huge kind of Instagram kind of influencer and celebrity, because she basically speaks her mind, goes off on one, and her personality lends itself to just ranting into a camera basically, and it's extremely engaging. And it's like you watch it and you're like, oh my God, this is just like, how long have I been watching this for? It's mental watching her, but it's just, you just watch it and that's it. Another example would be someone like let me think of a good example of some of these things live. Oh my God, my brain's dead. Okay, this is a bit gimmicky, but like Ariana Grande with her impressions, for example, like she does all those crazy impressions in on social media of like other artists and singers, and that's something which she can do because she basically grew up impersonating other singers, and that's how she constructed her voice, is by impersonating Mariah Carey, Celine Dion, Whitney Houston, all these people, and she's extremely good at it. So she just go into a camera, do it, and it just engages you straight away. Other things can be something like, let's say, for example, you happen to be really good at, let's say you've got a setup at home, right? You stick a camera above it and you're awesome at just smashing out like a 2-3 minute jam with those arpeggiators and some drum machines and things like that. And you just do some cool content. That was great. You'll get people just like hitting play on that all the time, wanting to watch it. Other thing, obviously, just being a singer-songwriter in general and just singing and like doing covers, like reinventing covers is a cool one as well. I mean, that's a kind of a classic one, but you'll get like, I've heard over the years, I remember there was this, here's a good example. There was this producer that I know, he's a bit younger. He's like in his, I don't know how old he is, he's like in his early to mid 20s. And he got me into his room one time because we used to be in the studio complex, and he was like, oh, bro, listen to this song. It's amazing. It's amazing. Dude, I want to write something like this. It's so sick, this new track this guy's done. And it basically played me this song. And I was looking at him like, I'm like, how do you not know this song? It was basically like an old Luther Vandross track that this guy had completely switched it in a way that was like oh my God, like I didn't even think that track could sound like that. That is incredible. But that was his thing. He had his own style. He had this kind of like neo jazz, this kind of like super laid back neo jazz kind of thing. And I think he might have even had like a harmonizer. He's playing on the keys and singing to Mike and creating the harmonies. And he just sings anyone's song. And it just has always sounded his way. And it just had this kind of thing that just made you want to listen to the next video and the next video. There's so many things. It's just about finding, it's basically about finding, the way I would do it is I'd find all the things that you really enjoy doing that you think are kind of cool and different, ask your friends, and then look at what other people are doing and find which ones of those people are doing least, and just try and test things, because you can always delete social media posts. That's the thing. I'm actually struggling with Maya, the girl who we're managing at the moment, with this, because she has two different personalities. She has her own TikTok personality where her and her friends and her brother, they will go nuts on TikTok doing crazy stuff. But then whenever she's posting on her official music social media account, it's just like, it's just pictures, selfies, and her with makeup and like dressed up a certain way. And it's just the fun part of her doesn't translate. And whenever I've like twisted her arm into doing more of a fun post or do something that's a video, videos are very, very important, with her singing something cool and reinventing something, suddenly she gets like literally 10 times more hits and views on it. So it's just about, like I said, ask your friends as well what they like about you.
It's about finding your own unique way, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Wicked. All right, then we've gone well over time, but I think yeah, we've had loads thrown at us, man. So thank you very much. I think it's really been a really good session, man. So yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for coming through, guys. We do these monthly. So I'm not entirely sure what we're going to do next, but you guys should be on the mail out, so we'll send you all the information about all that. And yeah, so brilliant. All right, looks like you guys have you've enjoyed it, man. So yeah,
I'd just like to say one more thing. So just everything I've said, listen to and also ignore. It's all about finding your own way, and I have my own opinions, and sometimes my opinions will vary from day to day, but it's one of these things. This is how I feel at the moment, and this is the kind of culmination of what I like. But at the end of the day, I fell down loads of times and tried different things and found my way of doing things. So you guys will do the same, and I'm very confident that you're all going to smash it.
Brilliant. All right, I think that's a good note to end on. So yeah, thank you very much, guys. You'll get the mail outs of what we're doing next. So yeah, hopefully see you guys next time. But thanks again, Ray. Nice one.
Good.